office. I'm incredibly proud that the DC Attorney General's office is the only prosecutor's office in the country that has a restorative justice as part of its office. And for example, let's assume we've got a case where we don't have enough evidence to make our burden. We can't prove the case. If we can get the victims, and it always starts with a victim's willingness to participate in the mediation conference of restorative justice, and the offender to engage in a mediation, we actually can have a very positive result that comes out of a situation when otherwise the criminal justice system is going to say, sorry, we're dismissing the case. And we're in collaboration with the U.S. Attorney's Office to see if we can't expand what we're learning in the juvenile criminal justice system into some adult crime. And there's a magic that happens when victims and offenders actually sit together and have a mediation conference, and the offender is forced to look into the eyes of the people that he or she has impacted, to feel true empathy about what's happening, and to commit in a mediated agreement about how they're going to do right going forward. That's where empathy happens, where people truly take responsibility for their actions and learn from their mistakes and commit to doing better. So we need to, I think, embrace what restorative justice is showing. We need to see if the data proves out what we're already seeing is reduced recidivism of people who go through the restorative justice mediation conferences, and see if we can't expand what we're learning to more serious crimes as well as to adult crime.
Thank you again for that response. And this last question before I go to some of the hands that I saw goes back to this idea about the setback. So Tia Bell says that prevention is better than cure, right? And so Regina Pixley asked the question via a text message, are there any plans within your office to reorganize or expand the Cure the Streets model?
So I promised to answer this question, but will you protect me from Philip Pinnell if I'm invading his time? I don't, you know.
He just joined us, right? And so he and I had a conversation, right? He and I had a conversation prior to the meeting starting. He was at another meeting that was very, very important that happens at the same time. He said to me, Stuart, if I can't get in, just give him an update on thou shalt not kill. He just joined us. We got a few minutes. You got time for about two more questions.
You have until 11:15, Brian.
Okay.
And don't answer one question with all that time. You answer about 10 more questions.
Okay. All right. I'm looking hard at Cure the Streets. And as I mentioned earlier, looking at where we can have greater synergies with the other violence interruption programs in the city. My belief is that Cure the Streets is working. I believe that the community responses to the survey we put out recently, that there's a general belief that it's working and is helping. We're learning from it. So I'm impressed by it and want to continue to invest in the program. I'm also looking to use the power of the Office of Attorney General to start exploring some pilot programs around prevention. The question that Tia raised is exactly right. Violence interruption is one thing. We've also got to shift to how we stop it from happening in the first place. And that's where we get to prevention. And I know that there's a lot of interest in exploring that. The right model for the Office of Attorney General, in my view, is to do pilot projects like Cure was at the beginning, test things, see what works, and then see if it can't be something that is then leveraged with the greater resources of the larger government. The Office of Attorney General's resources are limited in what we can do, but if we can pilot projects, we can innovate, we'll do that, and then find the right partners to hand things off to. And so the prevention space is the next thing that I want to see us lean into.
Okay. And so one other question is, what is money laundering? You know, I can't recall which person. I'll try to go back and find it real quick, the person that asked the questions, because as I see them, I write them down, and I didn't write that person's name.
That was Carlin Gray.
Carlin Gray, okay, I'm glad you caught it. Carlin Gray asks, what is money laundering?
So there's a probably a specific statutory definition out there that I'm not going to try to cite to you, but the general gist of it is when you have criminal behavior that generates money, the ill-gotten money from those criminal activities can be seized. So oftentimes criminals will put that ill-gotten gains into a perceived legitimate business. And so when you take the ill-gotten gains and put them into a legitimate business, it's considered washing the money or laundering the money. So sometimes you hear the phrase that, well, that restaurant's a front, nobody ever eats there. How do they keep paying their rent when nobody eats the food? The food's terrible. The concept is, well, somebody may be taking the ill-gotten gains from criminal behavior and washing it through what is perceived to be a legitimate business. One place that I'm concerned about that happening involves trafficking and human trafficking, particularly labor trafficking. So there are organized criminal cartels that generate an awful lot of ill-gotten gains, and then they've got to figure out what to do with that money. And so money laundering is that general concept of how do they make that dirty money clean.
Okay, all right, sounds like a great answer for me. Mama Joe, real quick, you got a question? I see your hand. You have to unmute yourself, Mama Joe. You're still muted.
Thank you, engagement office. I know the question I put in is that we always, I heard you, AG, talk about changing the verbiage, but we always looking at the gun and not what manifests the use of the gun. And so there's some real deep, we just talked about the laundromat, but we also have to talk about the laundromat within the government also, not just in the streets. And then secondly,
See, one thing about me, when I was in the street, I paid attention to stuff like that.
Who is that? Who is that?
I don't know. It's not. But what I wanted to say, when we look at the manifestation of why they use the gun, I heard us talk about family. I heard us talk about parenting. And a lot of times in trauma-informed care and all of these, which to me sometimes ends up being buzzwords. They're just buzzwords. And so I want to know what intricate role, especially with Trigger Project and also your on-the-ground workers that are in the trenches that know this work, how is that going to be integrated in your office and the work that you do? And on the manifestation of the gun, what are we going to do where our children don't turn to the gun? How are we going to start really building families, working with parents and helping grassroots organizations be a co-creator in this work and integrated in the process?
Okay.
So that's a big question, Mama Joe, and probably more time than Sandra's going to allot me to answer it. But I'll say this, the AG's office plays its role. And part of the role is some of the ways in which we deal with the abuse and neglect system, and kids coming into the child and family services space. Part of it is, what do we deal with kids that are starting to brush up against the criminal justice system? We have a aggressive program that's showing great promise called Attend, that is focused at a middle school and elementary school to try to keep kids coming to school on time and dealing with truancy. So we're trying to do our part about where we're addressing some of these things. We recognize, because we see it every day, that guardians and parents and aunts and grandparents need support. And that too often our government sends a message, you better not come to the government and ask for help because we're going to call you a bad parent and we're going to take your kids away. We got to break that type of mindset. And we're right there in terms of dealing with it. There are kids who need protection from their parents because their parents are being abusive and hurting them. But there are also parents who need help. And we need to recognize that. And we're right there. So I'm looking for ways to make sure that the people, the lawyers and the professionals in the AG's office are sensitive to those areas where we can find partners in other agencies in the city, as well as in the community, to get to some of those issues. We want to lean into that. I can use the bully pulpit of the Office of Attorney General. I can talk about what justice looks like when we think about it more holistically. I don't profess to have the resources or the scope by myself to do those things from the Office of Attorney General, but in collaboration with our partners in the government, with our partners in community, I think we can get to some of those connection points. So they're not buzzwords. They're actual how we prioritize decision-making and what we're doing in particular cases.
Okay. Maurice, real quick, Maurice, I want to try to squeeze in Christopher before we get and move and make our transition.
All right, thanks, Stuart. Good morning. First of all, I want to thank Sandra Seegers, who I've known for a while, for her help with my Safe Schools Everywhere agenda. Safe Schools Everywhere, I created it because of what had happened with those school shootings in Florida as well as Uvalde, and it's happened everywhere else. My program is designed to eliminate traumatic situations that students and school personnel encounter in the classroom, eliminate obstacles that prevent students from learning and teachers from teaching to the best of their capabilities, utilize a cost-effective way to eliminate mass school shootings. And there are certain parts that I can go at length, but I really don't want to do that because time is of the essence. And the other part is the police brutality that stems from what we all saw with the crime that took place, and it was a crime, to Tyree Nichols as well as Keenan West in California. And now another man who's been killed, and he was paraplegic in California as well. What to do about dealing with police brutality and also qualified immunity and how it plays into giving police officers a cover, almost a license to kill. That stuff needs to be addressed. And I'm hoping, Attorney General, that you'll give me a chance to come in and actually set up, have a conversation with you at length. We don't have the time today, but I'm more than willing to do that. I put my contact information in the chat, and I'm looking for someone to reach out to me so I can get this information out to you. I'm a retired correctional officer, and I have a lot of experience to be able to help. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. And we've gotten your contact, and Aaron Jenkins here will certainly reach out to you. And I appreciate your generous offer to help. And I'm very appreciative.
All right.
I'd like to say
Thanks again, Sandra.
Anybody who I did not say something to, if I didn't mention your name, charge that to my head, not my heart. Christopher, what you got for us, Christopher?
Okay, I was listening to the conversation when the Attorney General was talking about mediation, and I wanted to know specifically: is there mediation for criminal offenses, various criminal offenses such as someone with like threats or anything like that? And if so, if possible, if the victim and the person that is the offender, because sometimes these cases take too long in court, and they meet up and resolve those issues, and you inform your prosecutor. Does the prosecutor have the right to just continue with the case even though the situation has already resolved itself? It's been 5 years.
So thank you for the question. And the short answer is yes, because when a crime is committed, it becomes the obligation of the state, or in this case, the U.S. Attorney's Office, if it is an adult case, or our office, if it's a juvenile case, to prosecute. It's the obligation of the state. It's not like a private lawsuit where the victim has control over the prosecution. As a practical matter, though, oftentimes when the parties to a dispute have resolved their disagreement, then the evidence, the witnesses, the urgency of bringing a criminal case changes. And so you can oftentimes eliminate the need to go through a criminal prosecution if there has been a mediation and a resolution. There are lots of challenges when a criminal case is going on to having a mediation. And so we have not explored, but I think it's a good idea, whether or not we can include mediation in the way in which we prosecute cases like we're doing with restorative justice. Restorative justice is where both parties elect to participate in a mediation process. And that's what I was alluding to earlier in terms of expanding that to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So oftentimes that mediation that you're talking about will result in either a dismissal of the criminal case or a resolution of the criminal case without there needing to be further litigation or a trial.
So you do have a mediation process in place for criminal offenses?
In restorative justice, that's what happens. But again, it's not for all criminal offenses, and it's driven usually as a threshold question about whether the victim is willing to participate in the mediation process.
Okay. Sound like a solid answer to me. Sandra, this has been fabulous. I think the questions were great. If anybody has any additional questions for the Attorney General, please place them in the chat. We will download that stuff. We'll get it over to his office. We'll get an answer from that. We hope that you will stay on. I believe that Philip Pennell is with us and ready to tell us all about this new platform, this new movement, this whole idea and concept of why thou shalt not kill. I don't know if y'all can see that.
Hey, wait a minute, hold on, Brian.
Go, son.
Let me say so long to my buddy for now. You will hear from me again, Brian.
I hope so, Sandra. You know where to find me, and I hope you'll invite me back. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, everybody. Is that Ryan? Opening a bottle
Ryan in the room.
Yeah, that's him.
Okay, y'all got him hidden this time. Who's across from him? Who's across from him? I see a hand. Who's that?
This is my director of communications, Jordan Valdez. So you got the community engagement team and the comms team here in the room.
Okay, thank you so much. And we will have you on again.
Thank you.
Don't hide Ryan, because if you hide Ryan, man, I'm telling you, she might get mad with you, right? You know, you don't want her mad with you.
So, well, he was late, so he had to sit in the corner.
Oh, that's what
it was. Yeah, that's what you get when you're late. You get to sit in the corner. So thank you, y'all.
And we only stole a couple minutes from Mr. Pennell. Philip Pennell.
One more thing, Stuart.
Go right in.
Maurice, thank you so much. And yeah, please get in contact with Aaron. Okay, thank you guys. Go ahead, Stuart. See you later.
Sandra, I will. Will do.
So I really don't think that Mr. Pennell needs any introduction. He is the executive director for the Anacostia Coordinating Council, an organization that is hell-bent on making sure that the residents east of the Anacostia River have access to everything that this great city can offer. Mr. Pennell, you now have the floor.
All right, thank you, Stuart, and good morning, everyone. Sandra asked me to come on and talk about the Thou Shalt Not Kill movement. Well, this movement is in response to the continuing violence, shootings, and murders that we see in our city. And it is safe to say that most people in the city will never attend a meeting about the violence, be it virtual or in person. Those of us who've been involved in anti-violence activities can attest to the fact that after a while you see the same people. And that's no criticism of the people or the fact that they continue. It's just that there are some folks that you will never, ever see, but yet they do, in a way, feel strongly about what's going on. And the Thou Shalt Not Kill movement gives them the opportunity to do something just so basic as to put a poster or a lawn sign, yard sign in front of their homes, businesses, etc., saying "Thou shalt not kill." At least it helps to send that message. It helps to prick the conscience of the community. Hopefully, it will keep people from growing numb about the issue. And who knows? There might be a situation where there is someone with a gun in his or her hand and look up and see the sign, and maybe will be deterred from pulling the trigger. Please keep in mind that this movement is ongoing. As long as there's the violence, there'll be no expiration date on this movement. For the next couple of months, we'll be concentrating on the visibility aspects, the posters, the yard signs. t-shirts, sweatshirts. And as we progress, then we will start developing some other actions. You're all invited to the monthly meetings that will be at the Anacostia Busboys and Poets on the first Monday of each month. That will be at 10 o'clock. And at each of those meetings, we will be giving an update about the Thou Shalt Not Kill movement. And that's it for me.
There any questions for Mr. Pennell?
I have a question. I have a question
Yes.
for him. Philip, thank you so much for this movement. Tell us about, there's two other things he had going on. And one was the paraphernalia removal. And what was the other one? He had another one.
You talking about some of ACC's greatest hits?
Yes, that was one. And the
K2.
And the one from let me see.
The K2.
With your posters, unsolved murders.
Oh, the unsolved murders. Okay, all right. Well, the drug paraphernalia, the anti-drug paraphernalia project, that goes back into the early 1990s when ACC challenged all of the licenses, the ABC licenses of the businesses, basically liquor stores and convenience stores that were selling drug paraphernalia, to get them to sign voluntary agreements saying that they wouldn't do it. And that was that was a qualified success. Things have changed now that we have new marijuana laws. We can no longer, it's unfair, at least in my opinion, to ask, say, businesses to no longer sell rolling paper, as was the case years ago. Sandra, in terms of the unsolved homicides project, one of the continuing very disturbing, and it should be alarming, facts, statistical facts, is that most of the homicides that occur in DC go unsolved. The last year, there were 203 homicides, and I believe it was 86 or 87 of them were closed. So statistically speaking and realistically speaking, people are quite literally getting away with murder. Another thing is that so many of the homicide victims, particularly because what we have been experiencing in the city, it's almost every other day, after a while, they fade from memory. And what we have done over the years is to actually have a display of the flyers of the unsolved homicides, which are put on cardboard panels, and we show them around the community at different events to simply send the visual message that those people's lives matter too, and they should not be forgotten. I hope that we will eventually in the city have a very rigorous collective community conversation about the issue of unsolved homicides, because we have seen people who have said, well, you know, like the budget of the police department should be cut. Well, how can you advocate that when, if you're talking about trying to solve the unsolved homicides, which are increasing, it should be almost very clear, if not axiomatic to everyone, that we need more people working on those cases, because as long as people are getting away with murder in our city, it will embolden more people to possibly engage in shooting and attempted murders. So that is the situation in terms of unsolved homicide, at least display. Stewart is now in charge of that. I'm going to be deeply honest with everyone who's in this meeting. I did that display for 5 years, and it took an emotional toll on me to on a monthly basis add pictures of basically young Black men murdered, to display and to carry them around in my car and to constantly display them. Trust me, is not uplifting. And it came to the point where I simply was not up to the task emotionally to continue doing the display. So Stuart is now in charge of it.
Yeah, so he is now giving me that great burden. So Mr. Purnell, I didn't quite hear it. Maybe you said it, maybe it was there. I just want you to give it to us real raw, keep it clear. What is posting "thou shalt not kill" designed to do for the individual? What do you think is going to happen? What do you want to happen?
Of course, we would all want people to actually live by that message, but we all know that that's not going to be happening soon. We're at the point, not only in this community, but throughout the nation, where this continuing violence, and we live in the consummate Second Amendment society, so we know we're not going to actually ever see an end to guns in the United States. There are quite literally now more guns than people. Some folks have almost thrown up their hands, and they're saying, well, we can't do anything about it. Well, if anything, we have to at least keep the message out that murders are not acceptable in our community, and we want to visually oppose that. So if it, on a very basic level, does nothing more than visibly make that statement, that's what the community is doing. But this is what the movement is doing. But hopefully, this will spur others into action. I hope the guy continues to bless everyone who's in this meeting, because you're the core of the conscience in this community on this whole issue in terms of violence. And as I say, you generally see the same people. We hope to recruit more, particularly younger people, and maybe just having them, post the poster, or even wear a sweatshirt would at least make them feel that they're part of some collective effort in our community to send a message about the violence and the murders.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to leave the last minute to Sandra Seegers. I want to say thank you to all of you who have come and joined us. I know I've been thanking you through the chat and things of that nature, but I think it's important for us to say to people who give us their time, thank you. So I want to thank you on behalf of the First Friday group. I'm hoping that you will continue to join us every first Friday. We're going to continue to try to bring people before you who have great relevance and information to share, and people whom you can get ideas and answers from to hopefully make our community a better, safer, and more fun place to exist. Sandra, I turn it back over to you for closing. Reb is not with us to close out as he normally does, so Sandra will have the helm.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. For those whose email address I don't have, you can always find the information for the next meeting on my Facebook page. So thank you all for coming. And meanwhile, Alexa, continue to play.
I can play music and audiobooks.
Alexa,
just ask me what you want me to
Alexa, play. Don't show off. We got company. Alexa, play
You are hilarious.
Wanda.
Alexa.
Hey.
Alexa is showing off today.
That's funny.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Stay safe, everyone.
Oh, man,
have a great weekend.
Hey, look, y'all enjoy.
You know how children are. See, they playing Let's Get It On. But we're gonna Let's Get It On today. Later for inner
Let's get it on then.
That's funny.
They show off every time when it's company.
Oh, man.
I can feel it.
All right, anybody, one last thing. Anybody who's still on with us, right? It's a lot of y'all still on with us, and I love that, right? At the very end, Alexa won't act right. If you're on a laptop or desktop computer, you want to save the chat for yourself, go down to the bottom of your screen. It should be in the right-hand corner. You see 3 dots. If you click those 3 dots, somewhere along that list that pops up, it'll say save the chat. And if you click it, it'll save the chat right to your device.
Here you go. I had to give Alexa a timeout. Children.
Boy. All right.
Hey, Stuart.
Yes.
Stuart.
Yes.
Are you gonna save a copy of the chat for Red?
I am. I have it for Reb already. As soon as I close out,
cool.
It'll download. He'll get that, and he'll get the recording.
All right, sound good.
I thought I heard it.
Stuart, I don't see the 3 dots.
You know, I'm gonna have to come by and show it. It's got to be there somewhere. Should be in
All
your
right.
lower right-hand corner somewhere. Look by the icons and stuff. Smiley little face.
I know what you're talking about. I just don't see it.
Sometimes that happens. So I'll make sure I send it over to you, Ron.
Please do.
Recording